Commander Ji-hoon Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the stars through the main screen. The ship moved silently through space like a shadow. No one could see them. No one knew they were there. That was exactly how Ji-hoon wanted it. The Defiance was humanity's newest spy ship. It could hide from any scanner, slip past any defense. For 300 years, humans had been hiding in the dark corners of space. The galaxy thought they were gone. The galaxy thought they were just old stories. "Commander, we're picking up more signals," said Minji Park from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, smart and quick with computers. Her fingers danced over the controls as alien voices filled the bridge. The voices belonged to the Kalathi Empire. They were tall, proud aliens with red skin and sharp teeth. They ruled this part of space with iron fists. Their ships were everywhere, painted in dark crimson and gold. "What are they saying?" Ji-hoon asked. Minji listened to the translation software. "They're talking about their latest victory. They just conquered the Elysian colonies." Ji-hoon's face got hard. The Elysians were peaceful people. They looked like tall, thin humans with silver hair and kind eyes. They had never hurt anyone. But that didn't matter to the Kalathi. "Put it on speaker," Ji-hoon said. The bridge filled with alien voices speaking in their harsh language. The computer turned their words into human speech. "The Elysian dogs are broken," laughed one Kalathi commander. "Their children will make good servants. The adults will work in the mines until they die." "What about their leaders?" asked another voice. "Public execution tomorrow. We'll broadcast it across all their worlds. Let the other slaves see what happens when they resist the Empire." Ji-hoon's hands became fists. Around the bridge, his crew looked angry. These weren't just random aliens to them. They had been watching the Kalathi for months. They had seen what the Empire did to conquered worlds. Dong-hyun Lee, the chief engineer, spoke up from his station. "Sir, we could stop this. Our weapons could take out their entire fleet." "Orders are to watch and learn," Ji-hoon said quietly. Nothing more. But his voice carried doubt. How could they watch innocent people suffer when they had the power to help? Dr. Soyeon Choi walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the ship's scientist and expert on alien life. Her job was to study other species and understand them. Right now, she looked tired and sad. "I've been studying the Kalathi files. We stole," she said. "They've enslaved 17 different species. Billions of people living in cages working until they die." She showed them pictures on her pad. Alien children behind bars, proud warriors forced to kneel. Beautiful worlds, turned into factories and mines. "The Kalathi think they're better than everyone else," Soyeon continued. "They believe other species exist only to serve them. They take children from their parents and train them to be slaves from birth." Ji-hoon took the pad and looked through the images. Each one made him angrier. This was why humanity had left known space 3 centuries ago. They had seen this kind of evil before. Back then, humans were young and weak. They had just learned to travel between stars. When they met other species, they tried to be friends. They offered trade, shared knowledge, wanted peace. But space was full of empires like the Kalathi. Species that saw kindness as weakness. They tried to conquer Earth, enslave humanity, steal everything humans had built. So humanity fought back. They fought harder than anyone expected. They fought with such fury that other species started telling stories about them. They called humans Terran ghosts. Violent spirits who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as fast. But the fighting nearly destroyed Earth. Billions died. Cities burned. The oceans boiled. Humanity won, but barely. The survivors made a choice. They would leave known space and hide in the darkness. They would build their strength in secret, and if they ever came back, it would be on their terms. "Sir," Minji said. "Incoming message from Admiral Seokjin Jung." The main screen changed to show a stern-faced man in a military uniform. "Admiral, Jung commanded the human fleet hiding in this sector. He had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war." "Commander Kim," the Admiral said, "report status." "We've completed surveillance of the Kalathi Third Fleet," Ji-hoon replied. "They have over 200 ships guarding the system. Standard energy shields, projectile weapons, nothing we can't handle. Good. And the Elysian situation? Jihoon hesitated. The Kalathi are executing their leaders tomorrow. Public broadcast to terrorize other conquered worlds. Admiral Jung was quiet for a moment. Our orders haven't changed, Commander. Observe only. No contact with local species. No interference in local conflicts. Yes, sir, Jihoon said, but his voice was flat. I know this is hard, the Admiral continued. But we're not ready yet. Humanity needs more time to prepare. We can't save everyone, not yet. The connection ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Jihoon stared at the screen showing Kalathi ships moving through space like hunting sharks. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they could burn entire worlds, but the Defiance alone could destroy them all. Human technology had advanced far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. While other species fought with simple energy weapons and metal armor, humans had learned to bend space and time itself. Commander, said Dongyun, the crew is asking questions. They want to know why we're just watching. Jihoon understood. His people were warriors, but they were also protectors. Watching innocents suffer while doing nothing went against everything they believed. Tell them we follow orders, he said. But tell them to stay ready. Dr. Soyan was still looking at her data pad. I've been studying Kalathi culture, she said. They're not just evil for fun. They actually believe other species are inferior. Their religion teaches that they're chosen by their gods to rule everyone else. Makes them easier to fight, Minji said. No guilt, no second thoughts. But it also makes them more dangerous, Soyan replied. They'll never surrender, never show mercy, never change. The only way to stop them is to break them completely. Jihoon thought about Earth's history. Humans had faced empires like this before, species so convinced of their superiority that they couldn't imagine losing. But humanity had learned something important during their years of hiding. The strongest empires fell the hardest. Sir, called out Ensign Wu Jin from the communication station. We're getting reports from other human ships. The Kalathi are moving fleets toward the Androrian system. Looks like another conquest. The Androrians were even more peaceful than the Elysians. They were small, furry creatures who spent their time making art and music. They had no weapons, no armies. To the Kalathi, they would be easy prey. How long? Until the attack? Jihoon asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Jihoon closed his eyes. The plan was simple. Humanity would stay hidden until they were ready for a full-scale war. They would watch and learn until they understood every detail of alien technology and tactics. Then, when the time was right, they would emerge and reshape the galaxy. But plans were easy when you weren't watching children get dragged into slavery. Commander, Minji said quietly. The Kalathi are broadcasting the Elysian executions now. Don't put it on screen, Jihoon said quickly. But it was too late. On every ship in the Kalathi fleet, on every conquered world, the Empire was showing what happened to those who resisted. The crew of the Defiance could hear the screams through their communication systems. Jihoon had seen enough war to know that sometimes good people had to make hard choices. Sometimes you had to watch bad things happen so you could prevent worse things later. But sitting in his command chair, listening to innocent people die while his ship floated helplessly in space, he wondered if they were making the right choice. Sir, Dr. Soyan said, I've been thinking about something. We've been studying the Kalathi for months. We know their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. What if we're already ready? The Admiral says we're not. The Admiral is thinking about a full galactic war. But what if we don't need that? What if we just need to show the galaxy that the Kalathi can bleed? Jihoon looked at her. What are you suggesting? One ship, she said. One target. Make the Kalathi look weak in front of their subjects. Show the enslaved species that their masters aren't gods. It was a dangerous idea. If they attacked now, they would lose the advantage of surprise. The galaxy would know humans were back. There would be no more hiding, no more preparation time. But as another scream echoed through the communication system, Jihoon realized that some things were more important than tactical advantages. Minji, he said. How long would it take to reach the Kalathi command ship? 20 minutes at full stealth speed. Dongyun, are our weapons ready? Always, sir. Jihoon stood up from his command chair. Around the bridge, his crew watched him with hope in their eyes. They were tired of hiding, tired of watching, tired of being ghosts. All hands, this is the commander, he said into the ship's communication system. For 300 years, humanity has been a legend in this galaxy. Today we become real again. The bridge erupted in cheers. Finally, they were going to fight. But in the back of his mind, Jihoon wondered what Admiral Jung would say when he found out. And more importantly, he wondered if humanity was truly ready for what came next. The Defiance turned toward the Kalathi fleet. Its weapon. Grand Admiral Xiphon stood in his command center on the fortress world of Calathon Prime, staring at reports that made no sense. Ships were disappearing. Entire fleets were going silent. And nobody could explain how or why. The Admiral was old, even for a Kalathi. His red skin had darkened with age and scars covered his arms from 100 battles. He had conquered worlds when he was young, built the Empire's outer defenses with blood and fire. Nothing in the galaxy could surprise him anymore. Until now. Show me the recordings again, he ordered. The holographic display filled with security. Footage from Kepler Station, a mining facility on the edge of Kalathi space. The station was built on a dead world, where millions of slaves dug precious metals from the ground. It should have been perfectly safe. The footage showed normal operations. Kalathi overseers walking between work gangs, slave species digging and hauling under the harsh light of alien suns, guard ships patrolling the system in standard formations. Then, something appeared. It looked like a shadow-given form, sleek and angular. Unlike any ship design in the galactic databases, it moved wrong, too fast for its size, ignoring the basic laws of physics that govern space travel. Replay Section 77 Alpha, Xiphon said. The display zoomed in on the mysterious ship. It seemed to fade in and out of existence like it was only partly there. When the station's defense grid fired, their energy beams passed right through it. But when the shadow ship fired back, its weapons hit with devastating force. The battle lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, Kepler Station was a cloud of burning debris and every Kalathi ship in the system was gone. Only the slave quarters survived, protected by some kind of energy shield that had appeared from nowhere. Computer, identify the attacking vessel, Xiphon commanded. No match found in galactic databases, the artificial intelligence replied. Ship design unknown, weapon signatures unknown, propulsion method unknown. Xiphon frowned. In 2,000 years of galactic history, every major species had been catalogued. Every ship design was known. Every weapon system was understood. This was impossible. Sir, called Captain Zarian from across the command center. We have another report. 3 more outposts went dark in the Morvac sector. Same pattern? Exactly, the same. Unknown ships, impossible technology, surgical strikes that only target Kalathi forces. Xiphon's frown deepened. Someone was making war on the Empire, but they were being very careful about it. They could have destroyed everything, slaves included. Instead, they were only killing Kalathi. Bring up the historical files, he ordered. Search for any species with technology this advanced. The computer worked for several minutes, scanning through millennia of records. Finally, it responded. 1 partial match found. Ancient Terran vessel designs show similar angular construction. However, Terran civilization was destroyed approximately 300 years ago. Show me. The display filled with old images of human ships from the last Great War. They were smaller than modern vessels, more primitive, but the basic shape was similar to the mystery attackers. The Terran ghosts, whispered Captain Zarian. Xiphon had heard the stories. Every species in the galaxy knew about the humans. They were legends now, cautionary tales told to young warriors. A violent species that had burned so brightly that they destroyed themselves in endless wars. But legends didn't have starships. Legends didn't destroy Kalathi battle stations. Sir, another officer called out. Incoming priority transmission from War Prince Vorthak. The display changed to show a younger Kalathi with burning red eyes and fresh battle scars. Vorthak was the Empire's greatest military commander, a warrior who had never lost a battle. "Admiral," Vorthak said, "I'm taking personal command of the Third Armada. These ghost ships will not mock the Empire any longer." "Your Highness," Zephon replied carefully, "perhaps we should study these attackers first. Their technology is beyond anything we've seen." "Technology means nothing without the will to use it," Vorthak snarled. "These cowards hide in shadows and strike at mining stations. When they face the might of the Empire in open battle, they will break like all our enemies." The transmission ended. Zephon stared at the blank screen, feeling worried for the first time in decades. Vorthak was brave and skilled, but he had never faced anything like this. Meanwhile, in deep space, Captain Taehyun Yoon stood on the bridge of the UES Phantom, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. His strike force had just finished. Their latest mission, and another Kalathi stronghold, was nothing but debris. "Target destroyed, sir," reported Lieutenant Hyewan Nam from her fighter control station. "All slave quarters evacuated successfully. 0 civilian casualties." "Outstanding work," Taehyun replied. "Time to next target?" 6 hours at current speed, said his navigation officer. The Phantom was one of 5 ships in Strike Force Phantom, humanity's most advanced attack group. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built during the long years of hiding. They could bend space around themselves, making them nearly invisible. Their weapons could tear holes in reality itself. But most importantly, they were crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. "Sir," called Ensign Bora from communications. "Incoming message from Admiral Young." The main screen showed the familiar face of Admiral Seokjin Jung, the man commanding humanity's return to known space. His expression was stern, but Taehyun could see approval in his eyes. "Captain Yoon," the Admiral said, "excellent work on the Kepler operation. How are your crews holding up?" "Ready for more, sir. The men are hungry for a real fight." "They may get one soon. Our intelligence suggests the Kalathi are mobilizing a major fleet. War Prince Vorthak himself is taking command." Taehyun smiled. He had studied Vorthak's tactics during his years of training. The Kalathi prince was brave, but predictable. He relied on overwhelming force and intimidation. Against human technology and human cunning, those tactics would fail. "Orders, sir?" "Continue harassing their supply lines," Admiral Jung said. "But be ready to withdraw if they bring too much force to bear. We're not ready for a full engagement yet." "Understood, sir." The transmission ended and Taehyun turned to his crew. They had been together for 5 years, training in the hidden shipyards beyond the galactic rim. They knew each other's thoughts, moved like a single organism in battle. "You heard the Admiral," he said. "We keep hitting them until they come for us. Then we show them what humanity can do." On the fortress world of Calathon Prime, Grand Admiral Zephon received another disturbing report. This time, the attack had been recorded from multiple angles, giving him a clearer picture of what they were facing. The footage showed a Kalathi convoy carrying supplies to a frontier garrison. 20 ships, heavily armed, moving in a defensive formation that had worked for centuries. The attack came from nowhere. 5 shadow ships appeared as if materialized from empty space. They moved in perfect coordination, like dancers performing a deadly ballet. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that cut through Kalathi shields like they weren't there. But what disturbed Zephon most was how surgical the attack was. The shadow ships could have destroyed everything, but they specifically targeted only the military vessels. Supply ships carrying food and medicine for slaves were left untouched. "Computer," he said, "analyze the attack pattern. What does it tell us about our enemies?" "Analysis complete," the artificial intelligence replied. "The attackers demonstrate superior technology, tactical coordination, and selective targeting. Protocols consistent with military doctrine rather than piracy or terrorism." "Meaning?" "This appears to be a formal military campaign with specific political objectives. Zephon felt a chill run down his spine. Pirates he could understand. Terrorists he could hunt down. But a military campaign meant there was a government. Behind these attacks, a civilization with the power to build ships that could challenge the Empire. "Sir," Captain Zarian called out, "War Prince Vorthak is requesting permission to engage the enemy." Zephon hesitated. Every instinct told him this was a trap. The shadow ships were too good at hiding, too well coordinated. They were drawing the Empire's forces out, making them predictable. But he also knew Vorthak. The War Prince would not be denied his battle. If Zephon refused permission, Vorthak would find a way to fight anyway. "Permission granted," he said finally, "but tell His Highness to be careful. These enemies are not what they seem." Deep in space, aboard the UES Retribution, Admiral Seokjin Jung stood before a holographic display showing the entire galactic sector. Red dots marked Kalathi positions. Blue dots showed human ships. Green dots marked enslaved worlds waiting for liberation. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving reports from all strike teams. The Kalathi are responding exactly as predicted." "Show me," Jung ordered. The display filled with tactical information. Kalathi fleets were moving toward the areas where human ships had been spotted. They were concentrating their forces, abandoning their defensive positions to hunt the attackers. "They're taking the bait," Jung observed. "How long until they reach the engagement zone?" 48 hours, sir." Jung nodded. For 3 centuries, humanity had been preparing for this moment. They had studied every alien species, learned their weaknesses, understood their psychology. The Kalathi were proud and aggressive. When challenged, they would always choose to. War Prince Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, watching the empty space ahead through the main viewer. His fleet stretched out behind him like a crimson tide. 300 of the Empire's finest warships, armed with weapons that could crack planets. "Scan again," he ordered his sensor officer. "Nothing, Your Highness," came the reply. "No ships detected in this sector." Vorthak's red eyes burned with frustration. For 2 days, his armada had been hunting the human ships that dared to challenge the Empire. But space was vast and the enemies seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. "They are cowards," snarled General Korthak, Vorthak's second-in-command. "They strike at mining stations and supply convoys but flee when faced with real warriors." Vorthak was not so sure. The few recordings they had showed ships that moved unlike anything in the galaxy. Their technology was far beyond what any known species possessed. But if they were so advanced, why hide? Why not face the Empire directly? "Your Highness," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission. It's from one of the human ships." "Put it on screen," Vorthak ordered. The main viewer filled with the image of a human male in a simple blue uniform. He looked calm, almost bored, as if commanding a warship was an everyday task. Behind him, Vorthak could see a bridge filled with technology that seemed to glow with its own inner light. "War Prince Vorthak," the human said. "I am Fleet Admiral Yansu Han of the United Earth Navy. I speak for the 2nd Human Battle Group." "Battle Group?" Vorthak laughed. "You mean your handful of scout ships?" Admiral Han smiled, and something in that expression made Vorthak uneasy. "Look again, Your Highness." The space around Vorthak's fleet suddenly filled with ships, not the few scout vessels he expected, but 50 massive warships that seemed to appear from nowhere. They were sleek and angular, their hulls dark as space itself, dotted with lights that pulsed like stars. "Impossible," breathed General Korthak. "Our sensors showed nothing." "Your sensors are not designed to detect our technology," Admiral Han said. "We have been watching you for quite some time. We know your formation patterns, your weapon ranges, your tactical preferences. We know everything about you, Prince Vorthak. But you know nothing about us." Vorthak felt his pride surge over his caution. "Numbers mean nothing without the will to use them. You face the 3rd Armada of the Kalathi Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We do not lose." There is a first time for everything, Han replied. This is your only warning. Withdraw your forces, release all enslaved species, and submit to galactic justice. Refuse, and face the consequences. The transmission ended. Around the bridge of the Crimson Fang, Kalathi officers looked to their prince for orders. Vorthak had never backed down from a fight in his life. He would not start now. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. Show these humans why the galaxy fears the Empire. The Kalathi fleet moved forward like a crimson spear, weapons charging, shields at maximum power. They had fought this way for millennia, overwhelming enemies with superior numbers and firepower. But as they advanced, something strange happened. The human ships began to move in ways that seemed impossible. They flowed around each other like liquid, their formations shifting and changing without any apparent communication. Target the flagship, Vorthak ordered. His weapons officer fired the Crimson Fang's main guns, energy beams that could melt through any known armor. But the human ship he aimed at simply wasn't there anymore. It had moved aside at the last second, faster than physics should allow. And then the humans fired back. Captain G1O stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the Kalathi fleet with tactical displays that showed every ship, every weapon, every movement. Her vessel was smaller than the Kalathi flagship, but it carried technology that made size irrelevant. Initiating phase shift, she announced. The Indomitable seemed to fade out of reality, becoming translucent like a ghost. Energy beams from Kalathi ships passed right through it as if it wasn't there. But when the ship fired its own weapons, they hit with devastating force. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, reported her weapons officer. Their shields are down 40%. G1 smiled. The Kalathi had never faced an enemy that could become partially intangible. Their tactics assumed that ships had to follow the normal rules of space and time. Humanity had learned to break those rules. Take us inside their formation, she ordered. The Indomitable phased through the Kalathi defensive lines, appearing in the middle of their fleet. From this position, it could fire at multiple targets while they struggled to bring their weapons to bear without hitting their own ships. Around the battle space, other human vessels demonstrated their own impossible abilities. The UES Phantom could split into multiple images, making it appear that one ship was actually 5. The UES Vanguard could fold space around itself, making weapons fire curve away harmlessly. But perhaps most terrifying was the UES Storm, commanded by Captain Yuna Shin. Her ship could manipulate gravity itself, creating weapons that ignored armor and shields completely. War Prince Vorthak watched his fleet being torn apart by enemies that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Weapons that should have missed found their targets. It was like fighting nightmares made real. Status report, he demanded. 60 ships destroyed, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Another 100 damaged. Our weapons are having minimal effect. Vorthak's rage burned hotter than a star. This was impossible. The Kalathi Empire had the most advanced military in the galaxy. They had conquered species with technology far superior to these ancient humans. Signal the reserve squadrons, he ordered. Full assault on the human flagship. 100 Kalathi ships turned toward Admiral Han's vessel, the massive UES Retribution. Their combined firepower could destroy a moon. Surely no ship could survive such an attack. The barrage struck the Retribution with the force of a dying star. Energy and projectiles hammered its hull in a display of destruction that lit up space for millions of kilometers. When the light faded, the human flagship still floated in space, completely undamaged. Its shields hadn't even flickered. How? Whispered General Korthak. Admiral Han's voice filled the Kalathi communication channels. Our shields learn from every attack. Each hit makes them stronger. You cannot overwhelm what adapts faster than you can fire. The tide of battle turned into a massacre. Human ships moved through Kalathi formations like predators among prey. Their weapons struck with surgical precision, targeting engine systems and weapon arrays. They could have destroyed every Kalathi ship in minutes, but instead they systematically disabled them. They're not trying to kill us, General Korthak realized. They're making a point. Commander Minho Kong led his marine unit through the corridors of a disabled Kalathi cruiser. His powered armor made him look like a walking tank, but it moved with the grace of a dancer. Behind him, 20 human marines advanced with weapons that could cut through any known material. The Kalathi crew tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against human armor that adapted to each shot. Their energy rifles, designed to kill any known species, barely scratched the human suits. "Surrender," Minho commanded in the Kalathi language. "Your ship is taken. Your cause is lost." The Kalathi captain, a proud warrior with scars from a dozen battles, raised his weapon defiantly. "Kalathi do not surrender to inferior species." "We are not inferior," Minho replied calmly. "We are just different." He moved faster than the Kalathi. I could follow, disarming the captain without injuring him. Around the bridge, other Kalathi officers found themselves facing human marines who had appeared as if from nowhere. "Your empire has ruled through fear for too long," Minho continued. "Today you learn what it feels like to be afraid." Aboard the Crimson Fang, War Prince Vorthak faced a choice he had never imagined making. His fleet was broken, his ships disabled or destroyed. The humans could finish him at any moment, but they were waiting. "Incoming transmission, his communications," officer reported. Admiral Han appeared on the screen again, but now he was standing in what looked like a war room, filled with tactical displays. Other human officers moved behind him, coordinating the battle with calm efficiency. "Prince Vorthak," Han said, "your fleet is defeated. Your ships are disabled. Your warriors are captured. But you still live, because we choose to let you live." "Why?" Vorthak demanded. "If you have won, why not finish it?" "Because we are not like you," Han replied. "We do not conquer for glory or rule through fear. We fight to protect the innocent and free the enslaved. This battle was not about destroying you. It was about showing the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten." The main viewer switched to show feeds from across known space. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species watched the battle through hijacked communication networks. They saw Kalathi ships burning. They saw the mighty Third Armada helpless before human technology. For the first time in centuries, the conquered peoples of the galaxy saw hope. "Your empire built its power on the belief that you were invincible," Han continued. "Today, that belief dies. Every species you have enslaved now knows that their masters can bleed." Vorthak stared at the human admiral, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. This had never been about military victory. It had been about breaking the myth of news of the Battle of Titan's Gate spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On every world and every space station, beings gathered around communication screens to hear the impossible story. The mighty Kalathi Third Armada, 300 ships, commanded by the Empire's greatest war leader, had been crushed by 50 human vessels. On the slave world of Andros 7, Keeper Nalith watched the recorded battle footage with trembling hands. She was an Elysian who had been captured as a child, raised to serve Kalathi overseers in the crystal mines. For 30 years she had never seen the sky, never known anything but darkness and pain. But now, watching Kalathi ships burn under human weapons, she felt something she had forgotten existed. "Hope. Is it real?" whispered Jorak, an old Androrian whose fur had turned gray in the mines. "Can they really defeat the Empire?" "The footage is verified," Nalith replied, her silver eyes bright with tears. "The humans are real. The stories were true." Around them, other slaves gathered to watch. Beings from dozens of species, all broken by years of servitude, all staring at images of their masters being defeated. For the first time in generations, the word freedom was spoken aloud in the slave quarters. But on Calathon Prime, the Empire's capital world, the mood was very different. Grand Admiral Zephon stood in the High Command Center, surrounded by panicking officers and politicians. The reports from Vorthak's fleet painted a picture that challenged everything they believed about Kalathi's superiority. "Show me the tactical analysis again," Zephon ordered. The holographic display filled with data from the battle. Human ships that could phase through solid matter, weapons that ignored shields and armor, technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics themselves. "How is this possible?" demanded Senator Calrix, a member of the ruling council. "Our intelligence said the humans were extinct." "Our intelligence was wrong," Zephon replied grimly. "They've been hiding, building, preparing. While we conquered the known galaxy, they were creating something beyond our understanding." "Then we fight harder," snarled General Vectron. "We mobilize every fleet, arm every world. If these humans want war, we'll give them war." Zephon looked at the younger officer with something like pity. "General, you don't understand. This wasn't a war, this was a demonstration. They could have destroyed Vorthak's entire fleet in minutes. Instead, they disabled it. They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to break us, and it was working." Already reports were coming in from across the Empire. Slave revolts on mining worlds, conquered species refusing orders. Even some Kalathi colonies were questioning whether the Empire could protect them. Deep in space, Fleet Admiral Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, reviewing plans for humanity's next move. The victory at Titan's Gate had been perfect, but it was only the beginning. Now came the real test. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 12 Kalathi governors. They're willing to negotiate." "Ignore them," Jinwoo said without hesitation. "We don't negotiate with slaveholders." "Sir," Captain Sujin Kwan approached with a tactical display, "our scouts report massive Kalathi fleet movements. They're pulling ships from across the Empire, concentrating them at strategic points." Jinwoo studied the display. The Kalathi were doing exactly what he expected, gathering their forces for a massive counterattack. It was the same mistake every empire made when faced with a superior enemy. They assumed that numbers would save them. "How long until we're ready for Phase 3? He asked. 6 hours, sir," Sujin replied. "All ships are in position." Jinwoo nodded. Phase 3 was the operation he had been planning for decades. Not just a battle, but the complete liberation of every enslaved world in Kalathi space. It would require perfect coordination between hundreds of human ships, surgical strikes against thousands of targets, and the kind of technology that most species couldn't even imagine. "Signal all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Operation Freedom. Storm begins at 0800 hours. On the bridge of the UES Prometheus, Captain Sunho Kim received his orders with grim satisfaction. His ship was part of the Liberation Force, tasked with freeing the slave worlds while the main fleet dealt with Kalathi military forces. "Target confirmed," reported his tactical officer. "Andros 7, population 4 million enslaved beings, guarded by 1 orbital station and a squadron of patrol ships. Standard liberation protocol," Sunho ordered. "Disable the guards, shield the slave quarters, prepare for massive refugee evacuation." Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this mission their entire lives. Every human child learned about the enslaved worlds, the suffering beings trapped in Kalathi cruelty. Today they would finally do something about it. The Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace above Andros 7, its stealth systems hiding it from Kalathi sensors. The planet below was a hellscape of strip mines and processing facilities, its natural beauty destroyed by centuries of exploitation. "Scanning for life signs," reported the science officer. "Confirmed. 4.2 million non-Kalathi beings in underground facilities. Approximately 50,000 Kalathi overseers and guards." "Lock on to the orbital station," Sunho commanded. The station was a typical Kalathi design, brutal and functional, designed to intimidate as much as defend. It mounted enough weapons to destroy any ship in the old galactic navies. Against human technology, it might as well have been made of paper. The Prometheus fired once. A beam of coherent energy struck the station's main reactor, causing a controlled overload that disabled all systems without killing the crew. Within seconds, the mighty fortress was reduced to a powerless hulk drifting in orbit. "Patrol ships moving to intercept," the tactical officer reported. "Disable them," Sunho ordered. "Try not to destroy them completely. We want survivors to spread the word. The Kalathi patrol ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy. Beams and missile barrages lit up space in a display of firepower that would have terrified any conventional enemy, but the Prometheus simply absorbed the attacks, its adaptive shields growing stronger with each hit. Then it fired back. Precision strikes took out engines and weapon systems, leaving the Kalathi ships helpless but intact. Within minutes, the space around Andros 7 belonged to humanity. All defensive positions neutralized, reported the tactical officer. Beginning liberation operations. Deep in the mines of Andros 7, Keeper Nalith felt the ground shake as something massive landed near the entrance to her sector. Emergency alarms wailed through the tunnels, and Kalathi overseers ran past the slave quarters with panic in their eyes. "What's happening?" asked Jorak, his old voice trembling. Before Nalith could answer, the reinforced door to their section simply vanished. Not broken or blown open, but gone as if it had never existed. Through the opening stepped a figure in powered armor that gleamed like starlight. The figure removed its helmet, revealing a human face. It was a woman with kind eyes and short black hair. She wore the uniform of the United Earth Navy, and on her shoulder was a patch showing a blue world surrounded by stars. "My name is Dr. Chanwu Bei," she said in perfect Elysian. "I'm here to take you home." Nalith stared at the human doctor, unable to believe what she was seeing. Around the chamber, hundreds of slaves pressed forward, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. "Are you real?" Nalith whispered. Dr. Bei smiled, and in that expression was all the kindness that had been missing from their lives for so long. "Yes, we're real, and you're free." The evacuation of Andros 7 took 6 hours. Human medical teams worked tirelessly to treat beings who had been broken by years of abuse. Transport ships arrived to carry refugees to safety. Most importantly, human soldiers went through every tunnel and chamber, making sure no one was left behind. Captain Sunho watched the operation from his bridge, feeling a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with military victory. This was why humanity had returned to known space. Not for conquest or glory, but for moments like this. "Sir," his communications officer reported. "Incoming message from Admiral Park. The main assault has begun." On the central display, Sunho watched as the largest human fleet ever assembled emerged from hyperspace around Calathon Prime. 200 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the same impossible technology that had crushed Vorthak's armada. The Kalathi home fleet was waiting for them. Nearly 1,000 ships, every weapon the Empire could gather, arranged in defensive formations around their capital world. It was the largest concentration of military power in galactic history. It lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Kalathi ships surrender or flee in all directions. The enemy had fought, bravely, but bravery meant nothing against technology that rendered their weapons useless and their armor irrelevant. "Status report," he commanded. "Enemy fleet broken," his tactical officer replied. "Orbital defenses disabled. Planetary shield, generators offline. We have complete control of Calathon Prime space." "Casualties?" "0 on our side, minimal on theirs. Most ships were disabled rather than destroyed." Jinwoo nodded. Even in war, humanity tried to preserve life when possible. They were not conquerors, seeking to destroy, but liberators seeking to free. "Open a channel to the planetary government," he ordered. The main screen filled with the image. 6 months after the fall of the Kalathi Empire, Captain Sunho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching something that would have been impossible just a year ago. Through the main viewer, he could see ships from dozens of different species flying together in perfect formation. The vessels belonged to the Free Worlds Alliance, a new government formed by the species humanity had liberated from Kalathi slavery. Elysian ships with their graceful curves flew alongside angular Androrian vessels and the crystalline constructs of the Nexari people. At the center of the formation was the Prometheus itself, serving as flagship for the new Galactic Protection Fleet. "All ships report ready for patrol," announced Lieutenant Minji Park from her communications station. She had transferred from the Defiance after the war, choosing to serve in the peacekeeping force rather than return to Earth. Excellent, Sunho replied. Begin standard patrol pattern. Remember, we're not conquerors or rulers, we're guardians. It had taken months to convince the former slave species that humanity truly meant what they said. Too many civilizations had claimed to be liberators, only to become new oppressors. But humanity was different. They had the power to rule the entire galaxy, yet they chose to share it instead. On Luna Station, orbiting humanity's ancient homeworld, Admiral Hyejin Seo coordinated relief efforts across what had once been the Kalathi Empire. Her office walls were covered with reports from hundreds of worlds, refugee camps being converted to permanent settlements, former slave colonies learning to govern themselves, entire species rebuilding civilizations that had been crushed for centuries. Admiral, her aide reported, the Elysian Council is requesting additional medical supplies for their refugee populations. Approved, Hyejin said without hesitation. What about the Androrian request for agricultural equipment? Already shipped. The first harvest on New Andros is expected to feed 2 million people. Hyejin nodded with satisfaction. This was the kind of war she preferred to fight. A war against hunger, disease, and despair. Humanity's vast industrial capacity, built during 3 centuries of hidden development, was now turned toward healing rather than destruction. A chime from her communication system interrupted her thoughts. The main screen showed Dr. Taeyoung Kim, head of the newly established Galactic Council's Science Division. Admiral, Dr. Kim said, I wanted to update you on the medical research program. Working with Elysian healers and Nexari crystal singers, we've developed treatments for most forms of slavery-induced trauma. We're also making progress on restoring damaged ecosystems on the former slave worlds. Outstanding work, Doctor. Any problems with interspecies cooperation? None at all, Dr. Kim replied with a smile. It turns out that when you treat people as equals instead of subjects, they're eager to help. The Androrians have shared farming techniques that could feed the entire galaxy. The Nexari understanding of crystal technology is advancing our computers by decades. It was exactly what humanity had hoped for. They had always believed that diversity made civilizations stronger. The Kalathi had tried to suppress that diversity, forcing everyone to conform to their vision. Humanity celebrated it instead, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy with the new order. In the Outer Rim territories beyond the reach of the Galactic Protection Fleet, former Kalathi loyalists gathered in hidden bases. They called themselves the Crimson Fist, and they refused to accept that their empire was gone. General Vectron, one of the few Kalathi military leaders to escape the surrender, stood in the command center of a secret fortress built inside an asteroid. Around him, officers from across the former empire planned their return to power. The humans cannot be everywhere at once, he told his assembled followers. They have spread themselves thin trying to protect every world, help every species. We strike at their weakest points, show the galaxy that they are not invincible. It was exactly the kind of thinking that had doomed the Empire in the first place. Vectron still believed that victory came through fear and force. He could not understand that humanity's strength came from something entirely different. His plans would have succeeded against any conventional enemy. Raids on isolated colonies, attacks on supply convoys, terrorist strikes designed to make people lose faith in their protectors. Against the old galactic navies, such tactics would have been devastating. Against humanity, they were barely an inconvenience. Admiral Yujin Lim commanded the UES Eternal Vigil, the most advanced ship in the human fleet. Her vessel patrolled the galactic rim, watching for threats that might emerge from the darkness between stars. When Vectron's raiders struck their first target, she was there within hours. The attack had hit a medical convoy carrying supplies to former slave worlds. 3 ships filled with medicine and food, guarded only by a small escort. To Vectron, it seemed like an easy target. He had not counted on the convoy's cargo ships being disguised human warships. Status report, Yujin requested as the Eternal Vigil dropped out of hyperspace. 12 Kalathi raiders destroyed or disabled, her tactical officer reported. No damage to the convoy. The raiders never realized they were attacking military vessels until it was too late. Eugen smiled. Humanity had learned to think several steps ahead of their enemies. Every convoy, every supply ship, every seemingly vulnerable target was actually a carefully laid trap. The Crimson Fist was not fighting a war. They were walking into a web. "Any survivors?" she asked. "General Vectron's flagship is intact, but powerless. He's requesting terms for surrender. Put him through." The main screen showed Vectron on the bridge of his crippled ship. The proud Kalathi general looked older than his years, defeated by an enemy he had never understood. "Admiral Lim," he said formally, "I surrender my forces. I ask only that you treat my soldiers with honor." "Of course," Eugen replied. "Your wounded will be treated. Your healthy will be relocated to worlds where they can start new lives. You, personally, will stand trial for war crimes, but you will receive a fair hearing." Vectron stared at her in surprise. "You're not going to execute me?" "General, we're not the Kalathi Empire. We believe in justice, not revenge." It was a lesson that the galaxy was slowly learning. Humanity fought when they had to, but they always preferred mercy to cruelty. They had the power to rule through fear, but they chose to lead through example instead. On the former slave world of Elysios Prime, Keeper Nalith stood in a place she had never thought she would see again, the surface of her homeworld. The Kalathi had kept the Elysians underground for so long that most had forgotten what the sky looked like. Now she watched her people emerge from the depths, blinking in the light of their home star. Children born in slavery saw flowers for the first time. Adults who had spent their lives in darkness felt wind on their faces. "It's beautiful," whispered Jorak, the old Androrian who had become her closest friend during their years in the mines. His gray fur rippled in the breeze as he looked across fields that were green again. "The humans did this," Nalith said, her silver eyes bright with tears. "They could have left us in the dark, taken what they wanted and moved on. Instead, they gave us back our world." Around them, construction crews worked to build new cities. But these were not the brutal Kalathi structures designed to intimidate and control. They were beautiful buildings that celebrated the diversity of their inhabitants. Elysian crystal gardens grew alongside Androrian tree homes and human technological centers. It was a new kind of civilization, one built on cooperation instead of conquest. Dr. Chanwu Bei walked through the construction site, checking on the medical facilities being built for the new city. She had chosen to stay on Elysios Prime rather than return to Earth, working to heal the damage done by centuries of slavery. "Doctor," called a young Elysian who was training to be a nurse, "the Trauma Counseling Center is ready for its first patients." Chanwu nodded with satisfaction. Physical wounds could be healed quickly with advanced medical technology, but the psychological scars of slavery took much longer to fade. The new counseling centers used a combination of human psychology, Elysian empathy techniques, and Nexari crystal therapy to help survivors rebuild their lives. "Remember," she told her student, "healing takes time. These people have been hurt for generations. We cannot fix everything overnight, but we can fix it?" the young Elysian asked hopefully. "Yes," Chanwu said with absolute certainty. "We can fix it, and we will." Meanwhile, in the halls of the new Galactic Council on Luna Station, representatives from dozens of species worked together to build laws that would prevent another empire like the Kalathi from ever rising again. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating, as beings who had been enemies for centuries learned to compromise and cooperate. Admiral Seokjin Jung, now serving as humanity's representative to the council, watched the debates with patience. Building a just government was harder than winning a war, but it was infinitely more important. The motion to establish universal rights for all sentient beings passes by unanimous vote, announced the council secretary, a wise old Nexari whose crystal body chimed softly with each word around the chamber. Representatives from species that had once been mortal enemies applauded together. It was a small victory, but an important one. For the first time in galactic history, there was a legal document that protected the rights